Sadie and Maud by Gwendolyn Brooks. Maud went to college. Sadie stayed at home. Sadie scrapes life with a fine-tooth comb. She didn't leave a tangle in, her comb found every strand. Sadie was one of the livingest chits in all the land. Sadie bore 2 babies under her maiden name. Maud and Ma and Papa nearly died of shame. When Sadie said her last so long, her girls struck out from home. Sadie had left as heritage her fine-tooth comb. Maud, who went to college, is a thin brown mouse. She is living all alone in this old house. First and foremost, this is a poem about 2 sisters, Sadie and Maud. Right in the first stanza, the poet draws the distinction between the characters when it says, Maud went to college, Sadie stayed at home. This first description very plainly illustrates the contrast that will be seen throughout the rest of the poem. Sadie lives an independent and vivacious lifestyle, while Maud leads a more modest and conservative life. Moving on into the second stanza, an important symbol that gets brought up later again is established in the fine-tooth comb. The comb didn't leave a tangle in and found every strand, which is all to say that Sadie seeks out all of the pleasures in life, such as sexual passion and giving birth. When it came to having children out of wedlock, though, as evidenced by her children having her maiden name, Sadie was met with disappointment and shame from Maud and her parents. By the end of the poem, Sadie has lost everything, including the love of her parents, Maud, and her kids, as evidenced by her giving her last so long. The final stanza shifts perspective to Maud, who now lives a very lonely life despite sticking to society's standard of going to college. In terms of form, Sadie and Maud is an example of a ballad. Ballads tend to focus more on a narrative, as opposed to lyric poems, which focus on the emotions of the speaker. This poem clearly fits into the ballad category because it tells the story of 2 sisters and how they lived their lives, with little emotion interjected. Ballads also tend to follow the ABCB rhyme pattern, as this poem does. All 5 stanzas fit this pattern, but take, for example, the final stanza. The ending of the stanza's first lines, college and alone, do not rhyme, as evidenced by the letters A and C, but the second and fourth lines of the stanza do rhyme, as indicated by the letter B. Finally, ballads generally use simple language, and with a few exceptions, Sadie and Maud fits this requirement as well.
The speaker of this poem is ambiguous. Throughout the poem, it seems as though the narrator is external and not involved with any of the characters of the poem. However, as noted by John Gray in an article published in South Central Review, the use of the word "this" in the final line suggests that Maud is, in fact, the speaker. If the speaker is indeed Maud, the tone shifts to that of a cautionary tale, where the speaker warns the audience to not make the same mistakes that Sadie did. Moving on to the setting, this poem was written in the 1940s, a time in which having children out of wedlock was extremely frowned upon. On top of this, Rachitha Purnima Cabral, writing in International Journal of English Research, points out that the 1940s were a time where it was rare for women to have any college education, which makes the gap between Sadie and Maud even greater at a moral level. Furthermore, the poet Gwendolyn Brooks was an African-American poet whose career is defined writing about black characters living in the inner city. Although the race of Sadie and Maud are not explicitly stated, Brooks' tendencies as a writer, in combination with Maud being described as a brown mouse in the final stanza, provides a pretty good picture. This all leads to the central purpose of the poem. Reckless prodigal living, as represented by Sadie, is damaging, as well as modest, conservative living, as represented by Maud. This conclusion is counterintuitive because the tone of the poem seems to suggest that Sadie's lifestyle is preferable to Maud's because Sadie, with her fine-tooth comb, lives life more fully than Maud. However, by the end of the poem, Sadie had lost everything, including her children, who she doomed to make the same mistakes that she did. At the same time, Maud lived a very safe, lonely, and unexciting life, as revealed in the final stanza. Sadie lost everything, but Maud never had anything to lose. Both of these lifestyles end in misery, so Brooks is saying that a better way to live would by neither way, or maybe a combination of the two. Spontaneous, yet responsible. Vivacious, yet intentional, like Maud, yet like Sadie.
All right, here is our works cited. Wonderful. Here is our bibliography. Thank you.